Hey folks, this is Jake Davis, and today I would like to break down for you my picks for the top 5 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The MCU for short. A little bit of priming here. I was going to do this next month, but I busted my phone earlier this week, I wrecked it to the point, it was just unusable. So it's been a couple of days in the dark from the world. It's kind of cool. So yeah, I got a brand new phone today, and since I got nothing else prepared, I wanted to celebrate, christen it, and wanted to record a video. And this is pretty much all I had prepared in my mind right now. So yeah, here are my picks for the top 5 of the MCU. Also, real quick, these aren't necessarily ranked in my personal preferences, my personal 5 favorites, or even what I think based on just film quality and storytelling are necessarily the 5 best ones. I decided to just go with the essential MCU films. Just assuming as if the person I'm talking to, you have never seen a single one of these movies, and you want to check them out, don't know where to start, here are the 5 best ones. And yes, out of 20 movies, 20 movies that are almost all really good, is kind of hard to figure out which were the 5 best. So here are the 5 essential Marvel. Number 5, Iron Man, the one that started it all, so to speak. After the phenomenal success of Spider-Man and X-Men and Blade, in the early 2000s, Marvel Comics were finally, after decades, bankable. So, the studios were reaching out left and right, trying to make as many of these movies as they could. Some of them were let's just say, disappointing. But by 2006, Marvel had signed a deal with Paramount to develop characters from their archives themselves. And the launch was Iron Man. And yeah, man, they hit the ground running. It was a runaway success both commercially and critically. It rejuvenated the careers of both Robert Downey Jr. and Jeff Bridges. A lot of people forget about that with Jeff Bridges. Made Jon Favreau the kind of director that could just pick his next work. And yeah, man, it was excellent. It's a really good movie. Sure, it's just your basic origin film, but its directness, its earnesty, and yes, the charisma and perfection of actor to part that Downey was for Tony Stark was the biggest variable of the film's success, in my opinion. Number 4, Guardians of the Galaxy. Except for the obvious ones, Guardians, in my opinion, was the MCU's biggest risk. Even as a lifelong fanboy, I had never heard of the Guardians of the Galaxy when they announced this movie. I had to look it up. But I knew that, James Gunn can make a movie. And, they're on a good track record, man. I was intrigued, and then the trailer hits, and it's like, whoa, that looks great. And then it was great. My only real flaw for Guardians of the Galaxy that felt like, because it was so successful for the next couple of years, it felt like Marvel got a little complacent, where everything there felt like Guardians, in a way, one way or the other. Anyhow, they didn't really take away from how great Guardians was, and made Chris Pratt a huge movie star. I would argue maybe the biggest movie star of the last 10 years. Maybe, man. At least as far as breakout star. Number 3. Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Quite frankly, it was hard to figure out which Captain America was beyond here, because he couldn't be the whole list. But Captain America, the trilogy, in my opinion, is one of the best film trilogies of all time. But the Winter Soldier, I would argue, not only is that one of the MCU's one of its finest films, but I would argue you could put that movie up against any action movie ever made. It deserves to be talked about when we're talking about the great action films. It's up there with Die Hard. It's up there with The Road Warrior. Winter Soldier is a damn good time and a badass movie. Legit. Number 2. Black Panther. Black Panther was great. It was huge. It was revolutionary. And even people who were expecting it to be both good and successful, probably were not expecting it to be that good and that successful. And the proof is in the pudding. I mean, say whatever you want about political mindsets in Hollywood and stuff like that. Black Panther broke the last and final glass ceiling for comic book movies, and it has been nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture. Look at genre films. Hollywood has always loved to nominate gangster movies and war movies and westerns for Oscars, and there's even been a couple of screwball comedies, sci-fi movies, and horror movies to pick up Best Picture movies over the years, and even cartoons. But never a comic book movie, never a superhero movie, and here it is. Finally, at long last, and it deserves it. And yeah, of course, as a fanboy, I would have been happy if it had been The Dark Knight, or The Avengers, or Winter Soldier. I would say Watchmen too, but Watchmen was such a phenomenal disappointment for me. Anyhow, number one, the ultimate MCU movie. If you're only gonna see one, you have to see The Avengers. The Avengers is the most revolutionary, most inspirational, game-changing film of the decade. It set the stage for the rest of the decade. Everything has been Avengers since, from trying to build cohesive universes to fucking sky holes, recurring villains, all this trying to bait big franchises out, spin-off characters or supporting characters. It's all started with Avengers. And it was the sixth movie in the MCU. It's crazy. But the Avengers was amazing. It was successful. It was a massive gambit, and it really paid off. And I really think a lot of the reason for its success was sticking to the sources, bringing in someone like Joss Whedon, who could definitely handle multiple characters as well as absurdity without absurd concepts without losing the gravity of what's supposed to be going on, and still keeping that humor to it, and most importantly, focusing on Cap and Stark. Just like with Justice League, you gotta focus on the guys, the leaders, the ones people are really mostly here to see. That's Cap and Stark, and at the same time, just because nobody's gonna stop him from stealing the movie, the Hulk still steals the movie. So yeah, the Avengers is MCU's finest hour, its crown glory, even with everything Black Panther did. And yes, I know there's 15 other MCU movies, and I'm about to talk about them all. Just real quick, please bear with me. Real fast, the Iron Man sequels. Iron Man 2 gets a lot of shit, and fair shit, mainly because the villains are all silly, and the love story of Pepper Potts is kind of ridiculous, and that terrible drunk Tony bitch iron suit slap fight and at his birthday party. Iron Man 3 is straight up the only MCU movie I do not like at all. I think the villains ruin it. I think Guy Pearce is just boring, and I think Robert Downey Jr. doesn't show up to work, man. It looks like he fucking only did one take for each movie. There's no energy. For each scene, there's no energy. There's no nothing that he brought to the other films, and I think he just phoned it in, and it shows. I don't like Iron Man 3. Don't like it at all. And I've given it extra viewings. I've tried to give it a shot. And it sucks. Guardians 2. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is a very, very fun movie. But its real problem is that it's just in there filling up time. Wrapping up stories going in from this to that. Sure, but it doesn't really add to the bigger scope of the MCU. The absolute best thing about it would have to be the inclusion of Kurt Russell as Ego the Living Planet. A great character actor playing a fan favorite villain that we never thought they'd be able to pull off in a big screen way, and they do. The Avengers sequels, Age of Ultron just has too much going on, and personally I just kind of feel its only real problem is that it's too much humor. It feels like the characters never really take a moment to feel the gravity of what's going down in the film. There's a killer robot running around the world wiping people out, but hey, let's get some zingers in. And Infinity War, I would really argue, is the only film in the whole franchise of all the MCU that you kind of have to be completely invested in to go into. You'll still have a good time. You won't get lost in this film's story, but you'll get a lot much more having that investment and that time with these characters if you were to watch the other films first. The Captain America films are already said. Wow, great trilogy. First Avenger is maybe the most unique of all these movies in the MCU. It's almost feels like a golden age Hollywood film. I always compare it to the story of Louis Pasteur, but I know very few people who've actually seen that fucking movie. So yeah, superhero version of a Paul Muni biopic. That's how I see. That's what I got out of First Avenger. Not Infinity War, Civil War. Is just, it's a great movie. It's a really, really fun movie. It's a really, really badass movie, but ultimately it's just a one scene movie, man. You're here for the airport fight, nothing else. Everything else is just filler movies for the sake of having a whole film just designed for the sake of having this one fucking scene. And I can dig it. It's still a great, great movie. Like I said, we got all these characters, like over a dozen Avengers, but still a solo movie. Everyone gets plenty of time. Nobody really feels like they're gypped in the film as far as character-wise, but still so much Captain America's movie, and that's badass. The Ant-Man movies. First Ant-Man movies, I almost wanted to have it in my top 5. When we're talking about my personal favorites, probably my top 3. I think Ant-Man's an amazing movie. It's a family movie. Has one of the best superhero scores of all time, and I'll never forget watching it with my daughter for the first time. She's just a little turd. She just loved it. She got all wrapped up in the emotion and the warmth of it. She had a great time, and it helped me have a great time. And Ant-Man and the Wasp is also really, really fun. It's great to see all the craziness and all the characters come back, especially Michael Pena as Luis. Wow, what a great role, great character. Great performance. But ultimately, it's just a chase movie, and the villains are the problem with that movie, because it kind of feels like the villains don't have any weight or stakes in it themselves. It's just kind of like, it's a superhero movie, so we need villains, right? Go with it. The Thor trilogy. The first Thor, I prefer the second Thor, even though I think people are too rough on the Dark World. Thor's real fun. Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston are both great in their roles. Natalie Portman and Kat Dennings are adorable. The second one is alright. The new villains are whatever. It does seem to be a little bit more of the same, and I'd like to have actually seen an Asgard story instead of just a setup, one action sequence on Asgard. And Thor Ragnarok. I love Thor Ragnarok. It's a blast of a movie, but I've said it before. They just made Guardians of the Galaxy without the Guardians. Take out the Guardians, replace them with Thor. There's your gumbo. Spider-Man Homecoming is a great movie. It's a fun movie. It's definitely a fresher take on a Spider-Man movie. Especially, and kind of they had to do, even though it's MCU's first one, is the 6th Spider-Man film. So, and also going back to the importance of what makes Spider-Man so great is that in a world with gods and monsters and super geniuses and super soldiers, it's important to have a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Number 14, Doctor Strange. I love Doctor Strange. I have a blast. Doctor Strange is a super uber watchable movie. Very fast-paced film and a great performance by Benedict Cumberbatch. Again, on a personal level, it's one of my personal favorites in the rundown. And The Incredible Hulk. Okay, The Incredible Hulk is like the black sheep of the franchise, but I liked it. Edward Norton does a good job. William Hurt's really good. Tim Roth is very good. Ultimate real problems of it is Jennifer Connelly was such an excellent Betty Ross. Sorry, wrong Marvel babe. She was excellent Betty Ross. Kind of she's sucked to see her get replaced at all. Much less with Liv Tyler, who does her best. She just didn't work, to be fair. She was better in The Strangers, which came out the same year. And this great step. We get the leader. We get Tim Blake Nelson. He's the leader by the end of it. I mean, that's why they're fighting all through New York, but he's transforming into the leader and getting away somehow, and we never touch on that again. So yeah, that's the MCU. 20 films. The 21st film comes out next month. called Captain Marvel. No, I'm not talking about Shazam. The Captain Marvel movie is called Shazam, with the Ms. Marvel movie is called Captain Marvel. Why? Because fuck the fans. Anyhow, I don't know, man. I kind of think it looks whatever. It's nice to see Sam Jackson come back to a bigger role. I think Brie Larson's done good movies. I think she's a beautiful woman. But in all honesty, I've never seen her in anything where I thought she was what made the movie good, or that she was really the standout in it. Even in Room, her Oscar-winning film, that was the kids' movie. Anyhow, that's the MCU. Hope y'all liked this review. Hope you enjoyed my stuff. Like, share, subscribe, comment, get involved. I'm Jake Davis, and I'll catch you on the fly.